Commander Elia's ward had trained for many things before coming to the Ardent Halo station. He had trained for hostile negotiations, for emergency hull breaches, for first contact procedures, and even for psychological warfare. But no one had trained him for this, for standing in a bright silver chamber while an alien girl quietly listened to a thought he never meant to share. The Ardent Halo floated in orbit around a pale blue star at the edge of Alliance territory. It was a neutral station built by several species together. Its halls curved like smooth bone, glowing softly with natural biolight. There were no sharp corners, no harsh shadows. Everything felt calm and controlled. Humans had joined the Galactic Alliance only 6 years ago. They were still considered unpredictable. Loud, emotionally strong, very private, especially private. That was why Elias tried to be careful. The cultural exchange chamber was full of delegates from different worlds. Tall insect-like beings stood beside floating jelly-like diplomats. A few armored reptilian officers watched from a distance. At the center of the room stood Lyra. She was from the Aran species, a telepathic race known for their calm wisdom. Her skin had a soft silver glow, almost like moonlight on water. Fine lines of light ran beneath her skin, shifting gently when she felt strong emotion. Her eyes were large and reflective, like polished crystal. Elias had read her file before the meeting, young for her species. Exceptionally intelligent, sensitive to emotional waves. Sensitive, he should have remembered that. The exchange session was simple. Each species would share something about how they connect socially. Some spoke about shared dream states. Others described scent-based bonding rituals or harmonic voice linking. When it was Elias' turn, he cleared his throat and spoke in steady English while the station translated his words. "Humans are not telepathic," he said. "We do not feel each other's thoughts directly. We rely on speech, expression, and physical gestures to show connection." Several alien delegates tilted their heads in confusion. Lyra watched him closely. "What kind of gestures?" she asked softly. Her voice sounded almost like wind passing through glass. Elias hesitated only slightly. Handshakes, shoulder touches, sometimes hugs. He tried to keep his voice steady, professional. Lyra blinked slowly. "Hug." The translation system repeated the word in several languages. "Yes," Elias said. "It is a physical embrace. It shows trust and comfort." Lyra's silver lines flickered faintly. "You press your bodies together?" There was no judgment in her voice, only curiosity. "Yes," the other delegates whispered among themselves. Physical contact without combat was unusual to many species. Elias felt the weight of their eyes, and that was when it happened. He looked at Lyra, really looked at her, standing there with her soft glow and calm expression. He imagined, just for a second, what it would feel like to wrap his arms around her, to see if her skin felt warm, to know if she would feel fragile or steady. It was not a crude thought. It was not violent. It was simple curiosity, human. But the moment the thought crossed his mind, Lyra froze. The glowing lines under her skin brightened. A faint blue color spread across her cheeks. Elias' stomach dropped. Strong emotions could leak, he remembered too late. She had heard it, not the words exactly, not a sentence, but the emotional image, the intention. Silence filled the chamber. The insect-like delegate made a faint clicking noise. Elias felt heat rush to his face. "Delegate Lyra," he said carefully, "I apologize if—" "What is a hug?" she asked again. Her voice was softer now. Elias blinked. I just explained." "No," she said gently. "You explained the action. I felt the emotion." His heart beat harder. "You felt it," he repeated. "Yes," her blue blush deepened. "You imagined holding me. There was no aggression, no dominance, only warmth." A low murmur spread across the chamber. Elias straightened his posture. "It was inappropriate. I apologize." Lyra tilted her head. "Why?" The question stunned him. "Because," he said slowly, "humans consider private thoughts private." Her eyes widened slightly. "It was not violent. No, it was not possessive. No, it was hesitant," he swallowed. "Yes." "Then why shame?" The room grew very quiet. Elias struggled for words. Humans were complicated even to themselves. "Because imagining contact with someone without knowing if they want it can feel disrespectful," he said finally. Lyra studied him carefully. "But you did not act." "Of course not. You restrained yourself." "Yes," her glow pulsed gently. "That is fascinating." The insect delegate shifted closer. "Telepathic species do not hide such impulses," it clicked. "They are filtered by mutual awareness." Lyra nodded. "On Aran, we know when another wonders about closeness." It is shared instantly. It is discussed calmly. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. Humans are not built that way. Lyra's gaze softened. No, you are not. The Alliance moderator attempted to redirect the session, but Lyra raised her hand. I wish to understand further, she said. The moderator hesitated but allowed it. Lyra stepped one pace closer to Elias, not touching, just closer. When you imagined the hug, she said quietly, your heart rhythm increased. Elias felt exposed. Yes. Why? He considered lying. But that felt pointless now. Because humans connect strongly through touch, he said. It is vulnerable. When we want to hold someone, it means we trust them. Trust, she repeated. Yes. Her blue blush slowly faded into a soft lavender glow. I have studied human files. You are known for intense emotion, but this was gentle. He almost laughed nervously. Humans are not always gentle, but you were. The simple statement carried weight. Around them, the other delegates watched with growing interest. This was no longer just a cultural exchange. It was a live example of human emotional structure. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Elias felt a faint brush against his mind, not invasion, just awareness. I sense curiosity, she said. Not hunger, not conquest, curiosity about closeness. Yes, he admitted. Why? He took a slow breath. Because your species communicates through minds, mine does not. When we cannot share thoughts, we share presence. Presence, she repeated. Standing close, holding someone, it says, you are safe with me. Lyra opened her eyes again. You wish to tell me I am safe? The question made his chest tight. I may be, he said honestly. There was no teasing in her expression, only sincere interest. On Aaron, strong emotion was data. It was studied, explored. Her glow brightened slightly again. When I felt your thought, she said, there was hesitation. Why? Because humans value consent, Elias answered immediately. We do not touch without permission. Several alien delegates exchanged glances. Lyra seemed deeply intrigued. So you imagined contact, but would never act without invitation. Correct, she nodded slowly. That is structured empathy. Elias had never heard it described that way. The Alliance moderator finally stepped forward. We will conclude this segment, it announced. Further cultural studies can be arranged privately. The chamber began to clear, but Lyra did not leave. She remained standing in front of Elias, her glow now steady and calm. Commander Ward, she said quietly, may I request a continued discussion? He hesitated only a second. Yes, they moved to a smaller observation alcove overlooking the blue star. The wall was transparent, showing endless space scattered with distant light. For a moment, neither spoke. Lyra stood with her hands folded loosely. You are embarrassed, she said. A little. Because I heard you. Yes, she considered this. If I told you I found it comforting, he looked at her sharply. Comforting? Yes, your mind was loud but kind. It is rare among some species. Elias let out a slow breath he did not realize he was holding. I did not mean to make you uncomfortable. I was not uncomfortable, she said gently. I was surprised. By what? By the softness. Her honesty unsettled him in a different way. You do not experience softness, he asked. Our bonds are constant, she said. We share thought from birth. There is no barrier, but there is also no mystery. Mystery? When you imagined holding me, she continued, there was uncertainty, wonder. It felt warm. He leaned against the railing slightly. Humans wonder about everything, he said. Yes. I sense that. She stepped closer again, still leaving respectful space. Explain more, she said. About what? The hug, he exhaled slowly. It is simple. Two people put their arms around each other, not tightly, just enough to feel the other person's presence. And this causes comfort? Yes. Why? He thought carefully. Because when humans are born, we are held. As children, when we are afraid, someone holds us. It becomes a signal to our brain that we are not alone. Lyra listened without interruption. So it is tied to survival. Yes, and trust. Her glow shifted to a soft gold tone. When I felt your thought, she said quietly, there was also restraint. I told you we do not act without permission. And if I granted permission? The question hung between them. Elias felt his pulse quicken again. I would still move slowly, he said. Why? Because your comfort matters more than my curiosity. Lyra studied him as if he were a complex star map. That, she said softly, is why the Alliance fears humans, he blinked. Fears? You feel deeply, you imagine boldly. But you choose carefully, that is power. He had never thought of it that way. Silence stretched between them, but it was not awkward. Lyra looked out at the blue star. On Aaron, she said, physical contact is rare, it is not needed. But after sensing your emotion, I am curious. Elias swallowed. Curious about what? What it feels like to experience connection without mind sharing. He straightened slightly. You mean without telepathy? Yes, you would have to block your ability. I can reduce it. He hesitated. You are not required to do anything, he said carefully. She smiled faintly. I know. She stepped half a pace closer. Commander Ward, she said softly, if I wish to understand this human gesture, would you show me? His heart pounded. But his voice remained steady. Only if you are certain. I am. He moved slowly, deliberately, giving her time to step back if she chose. She did not. He opened his arms slightly, not touching yet. This is the invitation, he explained quietly. She looked at his arms, then at his face. Her glow shimmered with nervous excitement. This feels intense, she admitted. It can be. She took one careful step forward. Her silver skin reflected faint light from the star beyond. When she reached him, she hesitated for just a second. Place your arms, she whispered. He gently wrapped his arms around her shoulders, light and careful. She stiffened at first, then she inhaled sharply. Her glow flared bright blue, then softened. For a long moment, neither moved. Elias kept his hold loose, ready to release at any sign of discomfort. Lyra's hand slowly rose and rested lightly against his sides. There was no telepathic surge, no mental voice, only the quiet sound of two beings breathing. Her glow steadied into a warm gold. I feel, she whispered. He waited. Contained, she said, but not trapped. That's good, he murmured. There is no mental noise, she continued softly. Only physical awareness. He nodded slightly. That's the point. Her grip tightened just a little. This is powerful. After a few more seconds, he gently released her. She stepped back slowly, as if adjusting to gravity. Her glow shimmered with colors he had not seen before. That, she said quietly, is what your mind imagined. Yes. She looked at him with new understanding. You were not thinking something crude, she said firmly. You were thinking connection. His embarrassment finally eased. Yes, he said. She tilted her head again, studying him. Tell me more, she said softly. And in that moment, Commander Elias Ward realized something profound. The galaxy might read human thoughts. It might measure their weapons. It might analyze their history. But it had not yet understood the strength of a human heart. And Lyra, glowing gently in the starlight, wanted to learn every detail. After the moment of contact ended, Lyra remained very still. Her silver skin continued to glow softly, but the colors shifted slowly, like waves settling after a storm. Commander Elias Ward stepped back just enough to give her space. He kept his hands visible, relaxed, and calm, showing that the action was complete and that she was fully in control again. Lyra inhaled slowly, as if learning how to breathe in a new way. That feeling, she said quietly, remains. Elias watched her carefully. Are you all right? Yes, she answered after a moment. More than all right, I am thinking, he smiled faintly. That makes two of us. She looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers slowly, as if checking whether she had changed. When I reduce my telepathy, she explained, emotions become quieter. Normally, I sense many minds at once. Now I only sense my own thoughts and the memory of yours. Elias nodded. Humans live like that all the time, only our own minds. That sounds lonely, she said. Sometimes, he admitted, but it also makes moments like this more meaningful. Lyra tilted her head. Because they are rare? Yes. They stood together near the transparent wall of the observation chamber. Outside, stars drifted slowly as the station rotated. The blue star cast soft light across the room, giving everything a calm glow. Lyra glanced back at him. Earlier, when you imagined the hug, there were many layers of emotion. Curiosity, yes, but also protectiveness. Elias hesitated. Maybe. Explain. He leaned lightly against the railing. Humans often associate physical closeness with safety. When someone feels fragile or new to us, we sometimes want to reassure them without words. Her eyes softened. You saw me as fragile. No, he said quickly. Not weak, just unfamiliar with our ways. She seemed satisfied with that answer. On Aaron, she said slowly, we do not have such gestures. Emotional reassurance happens through shared thoughts. There is no distance. That sounds intense, Elias said. It is, she admitted. But it also removes misunderstanding. With you, I must interpret signals. Tone of voice, body posture, it requires patience. He smiled slightly. Humans spend their entire lives trying to understand each other. We still get it wrong sometimes. Lyra considered this deeply. A faint chime sounded from the corridor outside, signaling a new station cycle. Delegates moved through the hallway, their voices distant and soft. Lyra turned back to Elias. When you held me, I felt something unexpected. My thoughts became quiet. Normally, emotions arrive like waves from many directions, but during the contact, everything focused. That's common, he said. Humans call it grounding. Grounding, she repeated, tasting the word. Yes, physical presence can calm our nervous system. Her glow flickered gently. Your biology is fascinating, he laughed quietly. You should see our medical reports. I have, she said with a faint smile. They are chaotic. That's accurate. She stepped closer again, not as uncertain as before. I wish to understand more, she said. Your earlier explanation described hugs as signals of trust. Are there different kinds? Yes, he said thoughtfully. Friends hug differently than family. Comfort hugs are different from celebration hugs. Humans use subtle pressure and timing to communicate emotion. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. So one gesture contains many meanings. Exactly. That is efficient, she said. Elias chuckled. We would call it messy. She paused, studying him again. Your species is contradictory. You hide thoughts, but your bodies reveal emotion. You imagine boldly, but you act with caution. That sounds like humans, he admitted. Lyra folded her hands together, clearly processing everything. May I ask another question? Of course. When you imagined holding me, your emotional pattern changed again at the end. There was a second layer, something softer but more complex. He felt heat rise to his face again. Humans imagine a lot of things, he said carefully. Yes, she replied calmly. And I wish to understand them, not to judge. He took a slow breath. Sometimes humans imagine deeper connection, not just comfort, but closeness over time, partnership, emotional bonding. Her glow warmed into a gentle gold. You mean affection? Yes, she nodded slowly. Affection is shared openly among my people, but without physical symbolism. I find your method poetic. Elias wasn't sure what to say to that. Silence settled between them again, but it felt comfortable. Lyra suddenly smiled slightly. You are less embarrassed now. A little, he admitted. Why? Because you're not upset. I was never upset, she said gently. Only curious. A group of passing delegates glanced into the observation chamber as they walked by. Elias noticed a reptilian officer slowing down briefly, watching them with interest before continuing on. Lyra noticed too. We are being observed. That happens when humans do something new, he said. Or when Aaron do, she added. She turned back to him, her expression more serious now. My emotional signal is still broadcasting lightly. Other telepaths will sense it. Is that bad? No, she said. Only unusual. She hesitated, then spoke again. May we try again? He blinked. The hug, yes. I wish to observe whether the sensation changes when I anticipate it. Elias considered for a moment. Are you sure? I am certain. He nodded slowly. This time she stepped forward without waiting for his invitation. She moved carefully but confidently, her silver glow steady. He opened his arms again slowly, giving her space. She leaned into the embrace more naturally this time. Her hands rested lightly against his back. He felt her relax faster than before. Her glow brightened warmly. There is less surprise, she murmured. That makes sense. But the warmth remains, she added. They stayed like that for a few seconds. Elias kept his breathing calm, making sure the contact felt safe. Lyra exhaled slowly. This creates a boundary around emotion, she said thoughtfully. A physical container. That's a good way to describe it. She pulled back slightly but did not step away immediately. Tell me, she said quietly, do humans ever become overwhelmed by imagination? All the time, he said honestly. And how do you manage it? By choosing which thoughts become actions. Her eyes shone with understanding. That is discipline. Yes, she nodded slowly. Your restraint earlier was not suppression, it was respect. He felt unexpectedly relieved hearing her say that. Outside the chamber, activity on the station increased. A diplomatic vessel arrived, casting shifting light across the stars. Lyra glanced at the window. The Alliance will want to study this interaction. Probably, he said. Does that bother you? Not really, he replied. If it helps people understand humans better. She looked back at him with quiet admiration. You carry your species carefully. He shrugged slightly. Someone has to. Lyra smiled faintly again. Earlier you said humans imagine possibilities, she said. Is imagination always connected to desire? Not always, he answered. Sometimes it's just curiosity, sometimes hope. Hope, she repeated softly. Yes, imagining a better outcome. She seemed deeply moved by that idea. I felt hope when you held me, she said after a moment. The word surprised him. Hope for what? For connection that does not require mind-sharing, she answered. A new experience, he nodded slowly. They stood quietly for a while longer, watching the stars drift. Finally, Lyra spoke again. Commander Ward, when your mind wandered earlier, there were questions you did not voice. He sighed lightly. Humans always have unspoken questions. Would you share one now? He thought carefully. I wondered whether your species ever feels alone, he said. She was quiet for a long moment before answering. Yes, she said softly. Even with shared thoughts, individuals can feel isolated. Familiarity does not always create closeness. That sounds very human, he said gently. She looked at him, her glow warm and steady. Perhaps our species are not as different as we believed. Maybe not. She stepped closer again, not to hug this time, but simply to stand beside him. Tell me more, she said. About what? About human closeness, she replied. And as Elias began explaining more about friendship, about trust built slowly over time, about laughter shared without words, Lyra listened with complete focus. Each explanation seemed to deepen her understanding, and her glow reflected new shades of emotion. Across the station, sensors quietly recorded elevated emotional signals from the observation chamber. Telepathic observers felt the warmth spreading through Lyra's mind, and curiosity grew among the Alliance. But inside the room, there was only two beings learning from each other, the alien who could hear thoughts, and the human whose quiet restraint spoke louder than any telepathic voice. By the next station cycle, the quiet moment inside the observation chamber was no longer private history. The Ardent Halo station was alive with discussion. Telepathic species had sensed Lyra's emotional broadcast, and even those without psychic ability had noticed the unusual energy shifts recorded by the station monitors. Commander Elias Ward did not wake up expecting to become a cultural case study. Yet when he stepped into the diplomatic corridor that morning, he felt eyes on him from every direction. Whispers followed him, not hostile whispers, curious ones. Lyra walked beside him, calm as always, her silver glow steady and balanced. She had restored most of her telepathic ability, but she kept it softened around him. She had explained that clearly. I wish to experience your presence without constant mental echo, she had said. That alone had shocked many of her own people, an Aaron choosing quiet. The Alliance Council chamber filled slowly. Representatives from dozens of worlds took their places. Floating recorders hovered above the central platform. Elias stood straight but relaxed. Lyra stepped forward first. My people felt my emotional signal yesterday, she began. There was confusion. Some believed it was distress. It was not. Soft murmurs spread across the chamber. It was discovery, she continued. Human connection operates differently from ours. It does not rely on mind sharing. It relies on chosen vulnerability. Elias listened quietly. A tall crystalline delegate emitted a clear tone. Explain vulnerability. Lyra glanced at Elias briefly before answering. Humans cannot hear each other's thoughts. They must trust what is spoken. When they imagine connection, they must ask permission before action. This creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates weakness, another delegate said sharply. No, Lyra replied calmly. It creates courage. The chamber fell silent. Elias felt something shift in the room. Not just curiosity now, respect. Lyra stepped slightly closer to him, though not touching. When Commander Ward imagined a gesture of comfort, she said, he did not act, he waited, he chose restraint. His thought was not invasive, it was protective. A reptilian envoy narrowed its eyes. Humans are known for aggressive history. Elias spoke then, his voice steady. Yes, we have made mistakes, but we have also learned strength is not only force, it is control. The council studied him carefully. Lyra's glow warmed faintly. I experienced physical reassurance, she continued. It was simple, arms around shoulders, no mental intrusion, only presence. A low hum passed through the chamber as translations carried her words across species. For a telepathic mind, she said softly, the absence of shared thought was peaceful. That statement carried weight. Several Aaron delegates shifted in surprise. Peaceful, one of them asked. Yes, Lyra answered. There was no mental noise, no overlapping emotions. Only physical warmth. Elias noticed something in her expression, not just curiosity now, but confidence. The council requested demonstration data. Station monitors displayed the emotional patterns recorded during the embrace. The spike had not been chaotic or unstable. It had been steady, warm, focused. That is unusual, a floating gas-form diplomat observed. Telepathic species rarely produce such isolated emotional signatures, Lyra nodded, because we are never isolated. And you chose isolation, the diplomat asked. I chose experience, she corrected gently. Elias felt pride stir in his chest. The council eventually adjourned with no objections. Instead, they issued a recommendation. Further study of human emotional bonding practices would begin. News spread quickly beyond the station. Requests for human-led cultural sessions increased. Other species wanted to understand how connection could exist without psychic transparency. Over the following days, Elias found himself leading small gatherings. He explained handshakes, friendly pats on the back. Even the concept of sitting quietly beside someone without speaking. Lyra attended each session, sometimes observing, sometimes participating. One evening, after a particularly long series of meetings, they returned to the observation chamber. The blue star still glowed beyond the transparent wall, steady and distant. You handled the council well, Elias said. Lyra smiled faintly. Your species handles pressure with composure. We practice, he replied. She stepped closer to the window, her reflection shimmering against the glass. I have been thinking, she said softly. That's dangerous, he teased gently. Her glow flickered in amusement. When I first sensed your thought, she continued, I expected something crude. Many species imagine contact for dominance. He nodded slowly. But yours was different, she said. It was layered, protective, curious, respectful. Elias leaned against the railing again. Humans are complicated. Yes, she agreed, and that complexity is strength. She turned to face him fully. May I ask something direct? You usually do. When your mind imagined more than a hug, what did that mean? He felt heat rise in his face again, but this time he did not look away. It meant possibility, he said carefully. Possibility of what? Of closeness built over time, shared trust, maybe companionship. Lyra considered that quietly. Companionship without telepathy, she said thoughtfully. A bond built slowly. Yes, that requires patience. It does. She took a step closer, stopping within comfortable distance. On-errand bonds form instantly through shared thought. There is no guessing. And that works for you, he said. It does, she admitted. But I am beginning to see beauty in guessing. He smiled softly. Humans call that mystery, she nodded. I have chosen to reduce my telepathy around you permanently while we speak, she said. He blinked. Permanently? During our interactions, she clarified. I wish to understand connection the human way. That's a big choice. Yes, she said simply. Silence settled again, but it felt warm. Do you regret yesterday? She asked quietly. No, he answered immediately. Neither do I. They stood side by side, watching the slow drift of distant stars. Across the station, other telepaths noted something subtle. Lyra's emotional signature no longer radiated outward strongly when she was near the human. It became quieter, focused inward. Whispers began again, but this time not of confusion, of admiration. Days passed. More exchanges occurred. Humans demonstrated nonverbal communication, laughter, storytelling traditions. Alien delegates were surprised by how much meaning humans could carry in tone and gesture alone. Lyra became Earth's strongest supporter within the Alliance. She argued that humanity's emotional depth made them powerful allies, not threats. One afternoon, while reviewing diplomatic reports, she paused and looked at Elias. You have changed my perception, she said. How? I once believed telepathy was the highest form of connection. Now I see that choosing not to invade another mind may be even stronger. He considered that quietly. Choice matters, he said. Yes, she hesitated, then stepped closer. May we? He nodded gently before she finished the sentence. This time the embrace was natural. No surprise, no nervousness. Her glow warmed softly against him. There was no audience, no sensors recording, just two beings standing quietly together. After a moment, she spoke softly near his shoulder. When you imagine possibility, do you still? He smiled faintly. Humans don't stop imagining. She pulled back slightly, studying his face. And do you still choose restraint? Always, he answered calmly. Her eyes shone with quiet approval. That is why I trust you, she said. Outside the chamber, stars continued their silent movement. The station hummed gently with life. The galaxy had feared humanity's loud emotions. It had worried about uncontrolled thoughts, but what it discovered instead was something rarer. Humans could feel deeply, imagine boldly, and still choose carefully. Lyra looked at Elias one last time before stepping back toward the corridor. "Teach me more," she said softly. "About what?" "About patience," she replied. He smiled. "All right." And as they walked side by side through the curved silver halls of the Ardent Halo station, something new began, not forced, not rushed, not broadcast across minds. Just two individuals choosing to understand each other, one quiet heartbeat at a time. The galaxy watched. And for the first time, it began to understand that human strength was not in weapons or telepathy. It was in the courage to imagine and the wisdom to wait.